we're so glad to have you guys. I know that it's a little bit of short notice, but we like to just do these little pop-up surprises. And we like to reward people who are paying attention to their computers and to their notices. So you guys have seen most likely our post about our upcoming joint online office action bootcamp. That's going to be Monday, this Monday. It's a 5-hour online office action bootcamp. We all know how valuable that can be, and we're going to go over all the procedural stuff in terms of formatting and practical pointers. We'll go over the administrative and procedural types of office actions, you know, some of the ones that are easier, right, but maybe harder for some of us, like specimens and disclaimers, things like that. And then everyone's favorite, we're going to spend the latter half of the boot camp going way in just surgery level analysis on how to answer the 2Ds, how to answer the 2E1s, your likelihood of confusion, your descriptiveness refusals, and not just how to draft them, like how to win them, right? How to draft winning responses that get reversed. And who better to join us in doing that than a former USPTO examiner himself, which is my friend Erik. So Erik and I have known each other for years. We're so excited to collaborate on this for the first time for you guys together. And I thought that it would be fun if we were able to get on together and go over just some tips and tricks free, right? You know, you don't have to pay to be here. You're just popping on online, and we'll leave the video up. But we can walk through some stuff about just pointers and things that you guys might find helpful. And then you'll get kind of a sampling this way of what class will be like, right? What our technique is. And those of you who have taken my classes before, you know my style already. And you know that if I endorse Erik, he's got to be a badass too. To Corey, yeah, you do need this in your life. You do. And I'm super excited to offer it. A lot of my students, you guys who have taken 2 weeks to trademarks, had requested this. I got email after email about it. Hey, help us answer these office actions. Help us figure this out, And best part of all, that I don't think you guys have realized, you get 20 templates of successful responses to keep for a lifetime. Like 20 of them. You get a booklet, like an electronic booklet. No one realizes that. Like, this is amazing, right? Who can provide this to you? I don't know. In my 8.5 years of practicing trademarks, I haven't seen anything and no one be willing to part with their golden, juices and vault level secrets on how to answer these things. Hey, Erica, welcome. And so you do get access to that. And let's say you're not really in the mood to take a boot camp, or you don't think that you need it, or whatever it might be, whatever your reasoning might be. Maybe you're on a budget. If you just want the templates, right, you can just purchase those separately. Like, you'll just get the 20 templates by themselves. And obviously it's a much lower price. So, that might help you on a budget side if you don't want to take the whole boot camp. But if you take the boot camp, then you get the templates included in your registration. You get lifetime access to the recording. You can download the entire boot camp, 5 hours that it's going to be. Have the video for a lifetime. You'll get the slides for a lifetime. As you know, most of my content is lifetime access. That's what I believe in. So if you're on the fence about joining this, we're hoping that, some exposure to our teaching style may help you. Deneen, you absolutely can sign up your paralegal for this. There's no requirement that you have to be an attorney to take our courses. Certainly none of mine. We welcome law students. We welcome people who are studying for the bar. We welcome, new grads, paralegals, anybody, right? Anybody who feels like they could benefit from this knowledge. So the link is in our group. I posted it a couple days ago. I'll repost it. Early bird ends tonight at midnight. So that's why we want to go on in time. Hey, Nafisa, welcome. We wanted to go on in time for you guys to maybe be able to catch that discount, because we all like to save a little money where we can. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce Erik. So Erik, if you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background in trademarks.
Yeah, I'm so excited that Sonia invited me to participate in this, because I know that her programming is top-notch and that her audience is also top-notch, and that we're going to deliver something that is of extreme value. And really, I haven't seen any other programs like this, which is the reason that Sonia and I have been talking for quite a while about putting something together like this, because it just isn't out there. Nobody else is offering anything that goes as in-depth into both legal arguments and analysis, tools and examples, and practical tips, and comes with the package of templates and examples that we're going to be providing. And when you put those three things together, I think it's just going to be tremendous tools, tremendous value. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself, and then I want to talk a little bit about some of the types of things that we'll be talking about during the boot camp. So I was an examiner after I graduated from law school at the Uspto for about 2 years, where I reviewed, of course, many trademark applications and issued and wrote many office action refusals, in addition to approving many applications. And then after about 2 years, I went out on my own and launched my firm, that is Erik and Pelton and Associates. I'm in Falls Church, Virginia, actually just a few miles down the road from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And in 19 years of private practice since 1999, I've worked with clients from around the world, of course, around the country, have registered more than 2,500 marks, and have focused my practice pretty much exclusively on trademark application and prosecution and TTAB work before the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. And
I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt. I just want to call everyone's attention to the fact that he said 2,500 registrations. Like, just want to note that, because I feel like that got lost in passing. Okay, we have an expert on our hands here. 2,500.
Right. And during that time, I've also developed materials, because I've trained dozens of interns, law students, and law clerks, young attorneys that I've mentored and trained for the last 10 plus years. And through that program, we've really developed training resources for learning all about likelihood of confusion, descriptiveness, how to break down an office action, how to respond to an office action. And that's exactly the material that I've built much of the content for Monday around. So enough about me. Let's talk about what you're going to learn, because people care more about that, I'm sure. I about myself all day, but let's get to the meat of it. We're going to really dig into the main substantive areas, which of course are likelihood of confusion refusals under Section 2D of the Trademark Act, and descriptiveness refusals under Section 2E1 of the Trademark Act. So we're going to look at how to read an office action, how to analyze what the examiner's key arguments and substance are within the office action, and then how to address and respond to those, both with arguments and with evidence. So for example, on likelihood of confusion, we're going to talk about looking at the differences between the goods and or services, as well as the differences between the marks themselves, whether it's differences in meaning, differences in commercial impression, differences in appearance, and how to weigh, when you have a multitude of options that you might respond with, how to break down, okay, what's really the important argument here? What's the successful argument likely to be? And focus on that. I like to focus on making 2 or 3 really good, high quality, substantive arguments, rather than throwing in the whole kitchen sink and diluting all of the arguments and looking like I'm desperate here to try to get this.
Like you're just throwing darts at a wall, like anything I could think of, I'm hoping it'll stick, kind of thing.
Exactly. The examiner will see right through that. If you focus on even just one good argument with solid evidence, you're really increasing the odds that you're going to get the examiner's attention, get a thorough re-review, and perhaps convince them. And a lot of times it comes down to that evidence. So we're going to talk about evidence of dilution. If the mark that's been cited against you is weak, how do we find evidence in tests, the PTO's trademark system, of other third-party registrations that might show that it's diluted? How do we find and gather evidence online of other users of marks that might tend to show that the mark is diluted and weaker, and therefore entitled to less protection, and therefore avoiding a likelihood of confusion? We're going to talk about looking at the examiner's evidence. Of course, the examiner oftentimes attaches third-party evidence to try to show that goods are related or services are related. I'm going to show how I look at that evidence to see, is it really valuable? Is it really saying and substantiating what the examiners said that it is? A lot of times it doesn't go as far as the examiner might show. And so how can I describe that? How can I show that? And how can I find other evidence in the Trademark Office records that would counter the examiner's evidence?
I love that. And I think part of what I like the most about what you said is that we're really going to teach you guys how to hone in and focus on building out the 1 to 2, maybe 3 best arguments that are optimal for the particular situation that you get, and to flesh those out, right? Because it's really going to make you appear more credible and more authoritative in your response. And you have a better chance of keeping the examiner's attention. Because I mean, think about how many of these they see all day long. And you know, like I said, I think there's a lot of power behind Erik's background in having been an examiner. I mean, like, hello. So he's got the training. I mean, they go through a rigorous, right, training process in terms of learning how to examine these marks. And now that he's on the other side of it, he's had so much success reversing responses. You know, he's been a friend, colleague, mentor of mine for years. Is how I became as good as I am, right? So, you know, I'm definitely living proof of his teaching and mentoring as well. So Erik, I have a couple questions for you. You guys, I've compiled a few questions that I hear the most about office actions and just things that I think we would want Erik's perspective on. So the first one is, what do you think are the biggest or 2 or 3 biggest mistakes that people make, attorneys make in the application process that causes, you know, one of these office actions to begin with, right? Whether it's confusion or description, like what are attorneys doing wrong that they could maybe fix on the front end and they not even, you know, get one to begin with, if you can speak on that.
Yeah, well, 2 things that jump out right away are searching the USPTO records properly, right? And that means searching when you're applying for potential conflicts, but really searching even once you've been issued a refusal, searching for potential third-party marks, potential third-party registrations that show goods and services are or aren't registration, or aren't related. And so using the data that the Patent and Trademark Office gives us for free, making maximum use out of it by knowing what to look for and knowing how to search the right fields and tests and how to narrow those results to look at what is really important is one key issue. Another key mistake or issue that people often overlook is the description of goods and services. I mean, it's easy to throw the kitchen sink and try to come up with the broadest possible description of services. But if we're looking at a refusal or a potential refusal, perhaps we want to narrow those goods and services, focus on the core, focus on one particular class rather than a multitude of classes to try to get the registration and to try to focus on what really matters to the client rather than putting as broad a description as possible that is just more likely to raise red flags, more likely to encounter problems. So having a proper and thorough, if possible, but accurate and, you know, I would say tight description of goods and services is another issue that I see a lot of attorneys struggling with.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's great. Another question for you that I've heard a lot of, and I'm sure people would like to hear the answer to. You get a 2D, you know, you're minding your own business on a Friday night. Am I right that a lot of them seem to come in on like midnight on a Friday and they just ruin your night out? Like, I feel like I keep getting them at this like weird hour. And, you know, you're minding your own business and you're like, oh, I got something back on my mark. Oh, great. It's a 52-page office action with like 4-sided registration. So what's like the best next step, right? I mean, obviously, you know, you should probably wait until Monday morning, right? Or Saturday or whatever. Look at it, review it. Do you tell your client first? Do you maybe decide if there's arguments that are feasible? Do you call the examiner, right? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you think is the best protocol, you know, in order? Like, let's start here, then do this, then do this. Because I think a lot of us, especially, you know, my newer attorneys in the group or ones that aren't as experienced with trademark applications are like, oh my God, they start panicking, right? So tell us about what we can do, you know, to ease the process. What's the best protocol?
A great point, a great question. 2 basic things that I do first. Once, you know, first of all, I don't react right away. I don't even think about it right away. I look at all the office actions that I get once a week. So I personally, I just set aside time every Monday morning and I look at all the office actions from the prior week. Then when I'm looking at them, 2 things. First, most important thing is docket that deadline when the 6 months is due. Hopefully you're using some sort of docketing calendaring system. If not, you're using Outlook or you're using something to create a deadline and create a backup, because missing deadlines just leads to more complications, as we all know. Second thing, I look at the registrations. I look at their current status to see if any of them are up for renewal. It's possible even that some of them have been canceled since the examiner started writing the office action, or that they're going to be canceled or potentially canceled during the 6 months you have to respond. So you want to look into the timing and see if there's any timing issues. And so, believe me, this happens more frequently than one would think, where the refusal just goes away on itself because there's a renewal issue. And a lot of people overlook that because they just jump into fighting it instead of looking at the dates. Another thing to consider, of course, is if there are priority issues. If my applicant, my client, applied based on use and has priority that goes back more than just the few months since we filed the application, it's possible that they have priority over the registry based on common law rights or based on some, a related registration. And it's possible that we may want to explore seeking a consent agreement or oppositions or other things before we go into addressing the likelihood of confusion refusal directly with the USPTO. So all of those things are like, before I even think about how I would write an argument, those are things are like whether I even need to write an argument.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. I'd like to pause on my list of questions because we do have the advantage of people being able to live chat comments, and you guys ping in as much as possible. You know, we're seeing them come in and I'll integrate them as we have a break, but please ask questions, make comments. Like, you're not interrupting us. We're here for you to answer your questions. So I'm going to.
I saw a question about suspension.
Yes, that's what I wanted to hit first for Takora.
Both ways. If your application is suspended, what you might be able to do to unsuspend it, and when you might actually want to request and be able to request suspension of your application. So there's two sides of the coin when it relates to suspension. During the boot camp, we're definitely going to go into some of those issues and how they affect things. Unfortunately, I will be upfront. The overwhelming majority of the time when your application is suspended, the examiner is unlikely to do anything until those prior pendings move. It's just an easy way to put things on hold and possibly not have, for the examiner, not have to write a refusal or assess whether or not to write a refusal.
Okay, awesome. We have a question here from Evelyn as well. If you anticipate a rejection during the registration process, can you address it up front to save time, or do you have to wait till the office action?
You really can't address it up front. You can't, well, let me say, you can't directly address it. You can't submit arguments with your application, and you wouldn't want to call attention.
Right, yeah.
You're hoping you don't get cited, but you think is a realistic possibility. The way that you do address it is in how you draft the application, how you describe those goods and services. Okay, if there's a way you can limit the channels of trade, perhaps, or if there's a way where you say, you know, my client makes a variety of cosmetic products, but there's a registration for hair brushes for a very similar mark. We make hair brushes or we sell hair brushes, but let's leave hair brushes out of the ID so that we're not calling direct attention to that. We're still going to go for shampoo and conditioner and other hair products, but let's not use the word brush. Maybe it'll avoid coming up in a search, or maybe there'll be enough of a distinction when you combine the differences in the marks to avoid the likelihood of confusion. So, of course, there would be the option if you included brushes originally to delete it as you go forward, because you can always restrict the goods and services. You cannot expand them once the application's been filed. But I definitely strategically sometimes will narrow it up front to help reduce the odds of even getting a refusal.
Okay, awesome. Keep the questions coming, you guys. Those are the two that I saw, so let me know if I missed one. But I've got more, just the list that I get all the time from my students and things that, that as I teach, the things that come up. So here's another one. I tend to tell my clients, and the way that I explain this process is that it's like a judge or a jury, right? Like every trial you've seen, you're welcome, Evelyn, no problem. And that's something clients can relate to, right? Like, you see this trial on TV, there are two sides, both of them are good. Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. Like, that's just the nature of the legal process. And sometimes we agree with that decision and sometimes we don't. How do you account for, or what are your thoughts on the fact that, the examination process is human at the end of the day? There's somebody at the other end. We don't know if they've been at the USPTO for 25 years or 25 days. right? Different skill set, you know, human error, just anything like that. How do you account for that? How do you handle that, that possibility with your clients? Any thoughts on that? Because I find that a little frustrating, right? That you're like, you're new at this. It's your first year on the job versus, you know, a 20-year examiner might have understood where I was coming from on this, you know, something like that.
Well, the young examiners do have mentors and supervisors that help them and sign off on things. So I'm not as much worried about that. Um, what I, as it relates to that, what I always think about when I'm writing a response is writing it with integrity so that when they see my name or when they ask their colleague about something that I wrote, they're going to say, oh, Erik Pelton, I've dealt with him before. He's always upfront, honest. He's not playing games. He's not making arguments that are out of left field or completely unsubstantiated. And that's why I said before, I don't like to throw the whole kitchen sink in because I want my name, when I sign that office action response, to come with some integrity and some value. And that's going to build a cachet of credibility that may have some effect on future decisions when they see my name. The second thing I would say is, you're right, there's so much gray area in trademark law. That's part of what makes it so fun and fascinating, right? But many times, reasonable people can argue both sides of whether or not there's a confusion or discrepancy or whatever the issue is. And it really comes down to the evidence. The examiners, when in doubt, will issue a refusal and they'll attach some evidence. But if they get back a good response that has a solid body of evidence showing why the refusal is not appropriate, I try to never say the refusal is wrong. I try to say it's not appropriate in these circumstances. That they will often withdraw it because then you've established a body of evidence, a record that they can point to. If anybody ever questions, hey, how did this get registered? You were in charge of examining this application. They can say, well, look, the applicant responded and they provided these 20 third-party marks, or they provided all this evidence of use of how these two goods and services really aren't sold together, or the users are professional and sophisticated and they're likely to use more care. And so things are not going to be as confusing as they might be in an ordinary purchasing scenario.
Okay.
And so down to building that evidence.
Awesome. All right, great. Let's switch gears just slightly for a second to pricing in a couple ways. So I get questions a lot of times from my students and from people that I network with that, you know, we're at varying levels of our ability to respond to office actions and our varying levels of how many trademarks we filed. So some of us, I'm sure in the group, or I won't say I don't feel this way anymore, but at the beginning I did too, right? How much do I charge for an office action? Can I charge my full rate even though I'm not very good at this? I've only done a couple. I've only even filed a few applications. You know, I'm speaking for some people in the group maybe who are feeling this way. So I'd like to hear your thoughts kind of on a twofold. One, you know, how to handle that kind of pricing conversation and, you know, how to maybe just decide what to charge if you're at a level that, you know, you're not fully capable. And two, you know, speak to maybe the pricing in terms of the way that we've priced our course, because I've gotten two messages, just private ones, about the price point that we've chosen. And I thought this would be a good time to kind of mesh this together because, you know, if you think about two attorneys and 5 hours of time, right? Even if our rates are $200 or $300 hourly each, that's double the price of this course maybe. And you'd be hard pressed to find someone who would actually sit down individually with you. And even if you were willing to pay them their hourly rate, right? So we talked about it. We thought this was a great value in terms of the fact that you get not one, but two experts, a combined total of over 25 years of trademark experience together with both of us, dynamic teaching styles, which is hard to come by. Those of you who have been in 2 weeks of trademarks have told me, and I know you know this, that it's a lot easier to digest legal information, you know, when it's interesting and fun and it's not just like, this is the next thing. And we all hate that. Like, no one wants that. So we really feel like it's a fair price. I've had a couple people ask, you know, is there any way you can drop it? We can't. You know, we really believe it is. Thank you, Takora. It's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in the practice. We feel very confident in it that we are are packing this event with so much material and so much value, and the 20 templates that aren't available anywhere, right? I mean, who is going to just give you those and say, yeah, you can have these and go on with them, and you can continue getting the ROI on this information for years to come through your trademark career, right? I mean, think about how many office actions you may have to respond to, and the fact that you have this content, the slides, the recording, you know, and the templates themselves, you'll just have them at your disposal, you know, for any time you need them. So we feel very confident in it. We wanted to explain it for those of you who might not be sure where we got that price point from. But it is a value. And so in terms of kind of going back to what I was saying about pricing for newer attorneys, right? How does that fit in? Because if eventually a new attorney can learn this information and get to the point where he or she can charge that higher rate, right? Would that make sense, you know, for someone to invest in the course?
Well, I think it all comes down to value, and you used the word value, and I endorse the word value strongly. People have different ways of charging, whether it's hourly or flat fee or project based, or even with an incentive based on whether or not the market's approved. I've done that from time to time on special circumstances over the years. But really, I think as trademark attorneys, we're primarily charging for value, right? If we get, I've been doing this, like you said, for 19 years. And so for me to write a likelihood of confusion response takes less time than it did 10 years ago, but it's twice as good, if not more, because I've got all that experience and all that research that I've done and all these examples that I've done. So I don't charge based on my time. I charge based on the value that I'm providing to the client. And now if I'm a attorney learning more about trademarks and wondering how much I'm going to charge and how much value I'm providing to my clients, imagine what this course is going to do in terms of adding to the value that I provide. The templates themselves are of an incredible, tremendous value, but the templates themselves, without the discussion of how do you put together an argument, how do you duplicate finding this type of evidence for your case that will have a different mark and different goods and services, or a slightly choosing which analysis when it comes down to breaking down a descriptiveness refusal, which analysis, thing that we'll have in the boot camp, and that in-depth breakdown on top of the on top of the templates that goes with the templates, really adds to the value exponentially. And so then someone who's learned this and applied it a few times, then will be able to say to their clients, you know, I'm providing more value. I can charge you more. I'm now doing a better job. I've now got stronger arguments that are building our applications and our responses on. And so the return on investment is going to
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible.
The minimum, it's going to make the office actions better and make it take less time to put together a great argument. Then when you add on the fact that you can charge more over time as you become more experienced, the value will pay for itself in terms of the fees collected.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, a lot of people on live today and who are in the group are students of mine from 2 Weeks to Trademarks. And we talked about this in the very beginning when they took my course. Why would you teach this, right? Like, why even bother? Well, it's because nothing like it exists. And I mean, I told Erik this offline, like when we were starting to put this program together. I'm like, man, I wish this was available when I was a young attorney. I would have paid like just anything for it, any amount of money to get that skill set and to be able to just get it straight, right? There's a value, again, back to that V word, the value in getting information quickly, accurately, and with speed to just be able to have a reference point, right? We can spend years trying to figure out how to prosecute trademark applications like I did, and I made a bunch of mistakes. But in 2 weeks of trademarks, I condensed it down. I said, these are all the best practices. This is the right way to do it. Just go straight ahead. I mean, there's a 2-week time frame on that, right? I mean, you learn it quickly and you can go back to the rest of your life, because a lot of us here, most of us, are law firm practice owners, right? We don't have extra time. Like, that's the one commodity we are short on, right? And so making the most of that time and of that value. I had a quick question just come in right now in my email privately about the pricing. Someone asked about payment plans. 100% we can put together a plan for you. If that's your hang up, right? Like, we're here to teach you. You guys know my investment in creating better lawyers and sharing information. I have never turned down a payment plan. So if that's something that you need to split up the payments, we can work with you on that. We want to be able to have you take the course, right? We don't want money to be the reason. We won't drop the price just because, right? We stand by our value the way you probably stand by the value for your, your pricing with your clients. So we stand by the value of our pricing. But if you need to split it up in some way or make some sort of arrangement, or you need a little bit of something, email me. My email is at the top of the Facebook page on the banner, right? Email me privately. You can PM me on Facebook. I'm more than happy to help put something together for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to just briefly ask the people who are here, many of you, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names. So those of you who have taken 2 weeks of trademarks or conquered the consultation or anything else that I've taught, if you wouldn't mind maybe just chiming in what you thought about the course, in case there are people new to the group that are like, I don't know her, I don't know him, like, it sounds all great, but like, is this really, going to be good? Is this really going to be what I need, what they're promising? So those of you who have taken it, I think I saw Takora. I don't know if you're still here. T, hey, you just joined. Let's see who else is here. Familiar faces. Let's see.
While you're doing that, let me address one thing.
Yeah, so Sunny, you're here. Hi, welcome. Any of you can just, if you don't mind, just chiming in and just saying what you thought about the course so other people can see it. That would be very, very good, very helpful.
Sometimes other trademark attorneys ask me why I mentor, why I teach others. Am I afraid of competition? Am I afraid of like losing business? And the reason I bring this up is that there is so much trademark work out there.
Oh, I know.
There are thousands of trademark applications filed every day of the year in the United States. And think about that. Every day of the year, several thousand trademark applications. That's 365 days a year. There is so much competition. I mean, so much potential, work out there. Some of them are filed without attorneys. Some of them are filed by attorneys who know nothing about trademarks. And that's why I enjoy sharing this information with other lawyers who want to do trademarks, because really what I want is for people to get good representation, for people to get trademark protection. And the more lawyers that are giving quality trademark advice to clients, the more people are getting quality trademark protection. And that benefits everybody, whether we're practicing in the field of trademarks, whether you just support entrepreneurs and businesses in general. That's the way that the system should work. And so I am happy to share and spread this knowledge, like I said, built over 20 years in the field as an examiner and having built my own practice.
I feel the same way. I get asked all the time why I create this content, why I'm so enthusiastic about it, knowing that, I still have a trademark practice, you have one, right? And here we are teaching this information, sharing our secrets, our best practices, our tips. And the fact of the matter is the pie gets bigger when you share it. There is something about our community and exchanging the information, having that support system that I think just breeds better lawyers, and it breeds a better community. And so we have happier lawyers, we have happier clients because we have better representation, like you said. And we don't need to have a scarcity mentality, right? No one gets far on that mentality at all. And I think that I've seen a lot of growth among my students that have taken my classes so far, even in the last couple of years that I've been doing this. And it's so rewarding to get messages from you guys still constantly that, thank you so much. I just used one of your tips the other day, or, I used this to file that, and I got this great result for my client, or, now I feel more confident taking on trademarks because of your class. And now, I know what to say because I took Conquer the Consultation, and I know how to sell how to have the sales conversation. So I really enjoy this, and it's to feel like we are providing a resource base for knowledge for you guys to do better in your practices, in turn is rewarding for us, and I never thought I would enjoy teaching as much as I do, but it's a lot of fun. So, to that point, I create material based on what you guys want and need. We created this office action bootcamp based on so many messages and requests. So if there's other stuff that you're thinking, you're like, man, it'd be really great if you taught one on this or on that, it's coming. We're working on different things. And I have a lot of different material coming out. One thing that you can keep on your radar is a TTAB academy. Okay, so something, you know, some juice for you guys who participate in that process. I don't like the litigation aspect of things. I always refer that out. But if you are, or if you've ever dealt with oppositions, you know, on the receiving end, or you want to file an opposition, cancellations, notices to extend time to oppose, you know, again, what's the right protocol during all that, you know, just the whole TTAB cloud situation, the whole big pile of, right? There'll be some material on that sometime soon. We're working on that, but we wanted to roll out the office action boot camp first because that was more commonly requested. So another question that I think some people would like Erik's perspective on is, you know, kind of going back to the examination process a little bit. I've heard some frustrated, we have a comment here, handling a TTAB action now, right? So yeah, stuff is very relevant. And by the way, remember you guys that the boot camp, you get Q&A the entire time. I mean, it's not going to be on Facebook like this, but you have the ability to chat in questions and we'll take them in real time. So if you have office actions sitting on your desk or in your inbox and you're like, I'm afraid to even open this thing and I don't even know what to do with it, hey, might not be a bad idea to bring it to class and say, well, what would you do about this? Or, you know, what's a good argument to make on that? Because you get live Q&A during the entire boot camp and afterward. We're reserving time afterward. I mean, Erik and I are in no rush on Monday, right? So if it's longer than 5 hours, it's longer than 5 hours. We'll stay, you know, to get you guys the value that you're paying for. And if it helps you answer even one or two more effectively and get a reversal, hey, we've done our job. So keep that in mind. But going back to the examination process, a lot of my frustrated students ask me, like, I don't know, it feels like the examiners are like out to get me, or like, are they incentivized to register marks, or are they more motivated to like halt it for some reason? I don't think so, but I've heard rumors of like a point system that you get more points if you do this, or more points if you stall an application, or speed it up somehow. So take us in the mind of an examiner in terms of their incentivized and point process, because we keep hearing things, and I think it would be helpful to just dispel that altogether, you know, once and for all.
Sure. Well, some of that has probably evolved since I left the
Fair.
I don't want to state conclusively, but their job is to approve applications unless there's a reason to deny them. Now, that still means obviously lots of them get denied. And I think that they would rather be, while they do get credits or points when applications get approved, they also get credits and points for writing office actions. But I think most importantly is that they just don't want to be dinged by their superiors. So they're going to be somewhat conservative. And again, put the burden on the applicant to show why, if it's a close call, why it should favor the applicant's perspective. So that's why I've been finding the trend in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years to slightly more office actions being issued, but to more office actions being withdrawn when a good argument with good evidence is provided in response. And that's because, again, it comes back to that record where the examining attorney can then say, look, I did my job. You can see there's a record here that shows why it should be approved, and then it moves on towards approval. So it's hard for somebody to then say, well, you didn't make this refusal, or maybe you overlooked something, you know, and so everybody's done their job and it moves forward. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that every office action response is going to be successful. Many things can't be refused. Many clients get the best advice, right, when they call you and they say, hey, let's file for this. And you say, I can tell you in 30 seconds,
Yeah.
That's not a good idea. I don't really know how to charge you appropriately for that, all that I just saved you, but think of a different name.
Right. Yeah. Or my personal favorite, which is like, you know what, I got a good feeling about this. Let's just apply anyway. I'm like, I'm telling you with like not a doubt of certainty, like it's not going to happen. And people always want to try, which is just, it's the, you know, the fun part of the job, I guess.
And that's the difference between hiring an attorney and hiring an online service that will file that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
They either don't care or their system is only looking for an identical match. And, you know, if you spelled Google with an extra O, they would say, oh, well, it's not a direct conflict, so we didn't pick it up.
Yeah, shocker. Um, Question for you. So I know for a fact there's got to be some people who are going to be in class, maybe in a group, who are sitting with some office actions that they responded to, you know, several months ago, and it got, you know, they did their best, it got denied, right? But there's still maybe in that time frame where they can file another one. Will this boot camp help with that? Will you be able to provide additional ideas and arguments to maybe figure out, like, okay, a second submission and how you can make it different and maybe turn it around this time?
Right. There's no reason they can't file a request for reconsideration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you appeal it, of course, you can't add any evidence to the record. So that's the value in filing a request for reconsideration, either in conjunction with an appeal or before an appeal, to be able to add to that record, because the record is so important of evidence. And yeah, there's no reason they might learn something during the course that says, you know what, I didn't realize that I could have made a double entendre argument to address a descriptiveness refusal, or that I could have searched for evidence of other third-party registrations that used the same word that overlapped and caused a likelihood of confusion refusal, that maybe would have supported an argument that the cited registration is really rather weak and that there is no confusion. And so there very well may be some sparks after this boot camp that say, let's go back and readdress this and submit a request for reconsideration. Or, again, every situation is unique, which is part of what makes it so exciting and fun, is that maybe it's, yeah, maybe if we twist the angle of the description and services this way, it moves it down this path.
Right.
Avoids the registration that was sitting over here. And when we do that, maybe we can convince the examining attorney that these are really two separate markets. They're not sold in the same kinds of stores, and that combined with the differences in the marks, there's no confusion. So taking a fresh look at things is always a good idea.
Okay, awesome. I got a message in the time that we were talking about other stuff about the Q&A that we're going to be answering during the boot camp itself, right? Like the ability that you'll have to ask questions that might be specific to a client or an office action that you actually have or are dealing with, and in terms of confidentiality. So we have a setup that can kind of go both ways. The boot camp itself will have the online chat feature like you're seeing, so you'll be able to ask questions in real time. But I also have the ability to have my email on the side, and so if you want to email me questions ahead of time, right, and you want them just anonymous, no identifying detail, you want to change the mark, but you don't want anyone to know that it was you that was asking, right? Because, you know, we've had it come up in the group a few times that if you ask about a mark, someone could just look up all of your applications under attorney of record and know who your client is and all that. So if you want that level of confidentiality, we can do that. If you want to email questions in, again, before the boot camp starts, or even during, as we're going, and say, hey, don't say who I am, and I'm changing the marks, I'm changing some stuff around, but I want this question answered by you guys. I want to hear what you have to say. We can do that. We're here to help. So we want to tailor the boot camp as much as we can to what you guys need, and what comes up the most in terms of what you're gonna find value in when you do these responses. So again, don't be afraid to ask for a little outside the box kind of stuff, because we're happy to do that. Can we answer any more questions? I think that's all the ones I have as far as the ones that have come in or that are frequently asked. But do you guys have any questions about overview of office actions, or just best practices, or about the boot camp itself? Anything that we can answer? Anything at all?
Well, let me just step in and give an example of the templates.
Sure. Yeah.
Really, samples is probably a better word than templates, because I'm looking at this office action that was for a likelihood of confusion for a mark. This was in 2018, and it was refused due to a perceived likelihood of confusion with two different registered marks. And the response covers so many good issues. It covers the marks are different in sound and appearance. The marks are different in commercial impression. The differences between the goods and services. The differences in the channels of trade. The fact that the overlapping term was weak and highly suggestive. And as I said, I'm careful when I use a lot of arguments because I don't want to be seen as throwing in the kitchen sink. But here, these all played together, and it's got a table and attachments of at least 20 third-party registrations that I would discuss why and how came up with those. It's got a table also of third-party common law uses and screenshots from their websites and how we gather those and why, and a discussion of the relevant purchasers and sophistication. Um, and then finally, balancing the factors. And so not only is this template going to provide the kind of discussion that we're going to exercise through all of these factors during the boot camp, but then with these templates, and again, there's going to be more than 20 of them, there'll be some language, some examples, some things to look back to for everybody who receives them. And I'm sure you've all noticed, if you get office actions, that a lot of the language in the office actions is identical from office action to office action, right? The examining attorneys, it's not so much of a secret, but the examining attorneys have what are called form paragraphs. It's stock. Okay, you're writing a refusal about likelihood of confusion. Here are 20 standard paragraphs you can choose from. Then the examining attorneys hopefully provide some context and analysis. Sometimes it's very small, and we're going to discuss about how to identify what the core part of their office action is. But we're also, with these samples, you're going to have language to use in your office action responses to help frame all of those issues, consistently talk about, introduce what are the DuPont factors, why are they important, and citing the seminal cases. And again, that is of tremendous value that I think that everybody who receives these templates and samples is really going to appreciate it. And everybody will use them a little bit, in their own way. But they're really on their own providing tremendous value.
Awesome. I'm excited. I can't wait to do this. I know Erik and I have been talking about this for a while. It took us some time to configure kind of exactly what we wanted to teach and how and what the right format would be. But we're really excited. The link that I posted the other day, I'll repost it again when we finish so that you guys can obviously visit the page. The page itself has the entire curriculum on it, like every detail of what we're going to be teaching, like the overview of the syllabus. So if you have a question about, well, within confusion, are you going to talk about dilution? Are you going to talk about weakened terms? Are you going to, what about descriptiveness, supplemental registry, that kind of stuff? It's all on there. There's FAQs and there's tons of information about the class itself. Pretty much anything that you might be wondering should either be answered on that sales page, or we probably took care of it today, hopefully. If you have anything else that comes up, email me and I'll post the answer in the group. You can post the question in the group. We'll answer it. We have several more days until the boot camp starts on Monday, right? And you can register all the way up until, I would say lunchtime Monday, but the rate does go up tonight. Okay, so that's why we wanted to take some time, explain a little bit, answer some questions, give you guys some free information and some free tips and tricks and Q&A. But early bird does end tonight at midnight. It's already 6 p.m. Eastern. So if you're interested, I would hate to see an email, tomorrow that you missed the deadline. It's $9.97 for the entire boot camp, and you get the 20 templates for free included in your registration. Okay, so that link is on the group. I posted it the other day. I'll repost it. If you just want the templates, you're like, I'm good. I don't need to hear this. I don't have time for it. Then the templates are available too for a much smaller price, which is $3.97, and you'll get those as well. So if you want to purchase those a la carte just by itself, that's fine. That price will remain, right? Well, you can have the template access, but the price of the boot camp, right, which includes the templates, that's going up starting midnight from $9.97 to $12.97. So we really don't want you to miss out. We jam-packed this, and we really are excited to teach you so much value. So we hope that you'll join us. And if you need a payment plan or any kind of arrangement, shoot me an email. We'll put something together for you. And lastly, if you don't remember, if you are a 2 weeks to trademarks student of mine, right, a past alumni, and I have your name in my database, you get 10% off. So take the early bird, combine it with your 10% off, and get a great deal on some awesome information and, make an investment into your career. So with that, we wanted to kind of just spend about an hour or so. So we'll wrap up, but if you have any residual questions, please feel free to chime in. Otherwise, we'll monitor the group throughout the weekend, and hopefully we'll see you Monday. Anything else you guys would like our perspective on?
This is really just the tip of the iceberg, what we've covered today, and I really can't wait to share it. I'm certain that even after 5 hours, people are
Oh,
going
yeah.
to they're going to be like, we didn't get to this, and we're going to cover all of the key things. And like you said, we can go late, we can follow up with questions about specific things, because there is so much to cover. Because like I said, I've dealt with these literally thousands of times. So I look forward to it.
Me too. Likewise. We'll see you guys. Thank you for joining. Takora, I saw your registration. I saw a bunch more come in while we were talking. So I'm excited to have you guys. We'll see you on Monday. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.